Hello, folks. Thank you so much for joining me this week on The Ryan Files. This week we have a special guest. His name is Mark Goodwin, author of over 40 books, and it was a great honor to interview him. Mark is awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this week on The Ryan Files. Got a special guest this week. Very excited about this interview from somewhere, I think in North Carolina right now. I'm not exactly sure, but please welcome author Mark Goodwin.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a real honor to be with you today.
We're going to get into your books. We're going to get into a lot of things. The first thing I just want to get into that's a little bit fun and maybe just a real quick way to get the discussion going. Obviously, we can't see you. And it was funny. I asked, and you said, hey, listen, I'm not going to do the video thing. I asked for a photo and you went into, just kind of like getting yourself off the internet. And I totally get it. But just describe that thought process to us. And I think it's great. So I just wanted to hear where your thought process was concerning all that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've done a couple of interviews. You may be able to find pictures or headshots of me on YouTube. If you Google me, it comes up with other authors. So I'm real happy about that. So I've done pretty good evading Google. But I've gotten a little bit more leery of having my face on the internet now since January 6th. I don't know if you know Clearview AI, which is one of Peter Thiel's companies. He started that, and he's one of the PayPal founders. Clearview AI, they scraped Facebook, scraped the web, and they're the ones that helped the FBI identify all the J6ers so they could kick in grandma and grandpa's door at 3:30 in the morning and haul them off to the gulag, for, 18, 20-year sentences for being waved into the Capitol by Capitol Police to go to the bathroom, And we might talk a little bit more about Peter Thiel.
Okay.
Today, maybe while we're on the subject, Thiel is he was kind of the patron for JD Vance. I don't know if you know that, but Vance, I was a big fan of JD Vance before I found out about his Peter Thiel connection. I read the book. Was excited when the movie came out because I'm originally from Kentucky, so I'm kind of a hillbilly. So that whole hillbilly elegy thing kind of plays well with me. Right. But nowhere in the book and nowhere in the movie does he mention meeting Peter Thiel while he was still at Yale. He didn't go into law. He studied law at Yale, but he didn't go into law. He went to Mithril Capital, which was Peter Thiel's vulture capital firm, or venture capital firm rather. And then Thiel went on to fund JD Vance's Ohio Senate bid with a $15 million donation, the single largest donation for a Senate race ever.
Wow.
So, maybe that's not so conspiratorial, except that I just told you about one of his companies, Clearview AI.
Right.
Which,
goes
having
back to
that
January
connection,
6th and all that.
having that connection with January 6th and JD Vance, that just automatically really doesn't sit well with me.
Right.
But it gets worse. Peter Thiel, he's on the steering committee for the Bilderberg Group. And, I've watched enough of the Ryan Files to know that you've got a little bit of a conspiratorial slant to your show. And I'm sure you're probably somewhat familiar with the Bilderberg Group and the globalists and their agenda and what they've got in mind for all of us. So he's one of those guys.
Right.
As I mentioned before, he's one of the co-founders of PayPal. He also went on to found Palantir. That was done with money from In-Q-Tel. I don't know if you know what In-Q-Tel is, but In-Q-Tel is the venture capital firm of the CIA. And yes, the CIA has their own venture capital firm, and I'm sure that's just for, for the public good.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And Palantir, they develop military AI software like Gotham and Maven, and those systems are used to operate unmanned weapon systems. They select targets, make kill decisions with no human intervention, and that sounds pretty cool as long as it's not used on us, right?
Right.
Like Prism, like fortunately Prism isn't used on the American public, and
But it
in
is.
FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, fortunately that's not used on Americans.
Right.
uh,
Right. Yeah.
so they've got a really good track record for not using any of this stuff against us. So hopefully we're pretty safe, but just in case we're not. Palantir, they also produced the data mining software that was used to track COVID vaccine distribution in the US and the UK. And most most people that are paying attention at all are starting to understand that
Maybe.
maybe you should test vaccines on animals before
Right.
you run them on humans. But of course, when they tested mRNA vaccines on animals, all the animals died. So it was best that they just not test the COVID vaccine on the animals, because might not have went well.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, man, we're just firing right out the gate, Mark. This is awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I like to ask people that come on the show, and there's a reason why. There's no right or wrong answer. There is a right or wrong answer, but we don't necessarily know it right now. But I do have a question that I like to ask everyone, because it's something that has always resonated with me. Number one, it's kind of a two-part question. Are UFO, UAP, are they real? And number two, if they are, I mean, they're out there, but if they are real, who are the pilots? And in which way, shape, or form does this relate at all, possibly, maybe not, to the recent drone? Drones everywhere, East Coast drones everywhere. So I know there's a lot there to unpack, but give me your thoughts on that. Are UFO, UAP real? And if so, who are the pilots? Start out there.
Well, there's obviously something going on. We had the congressional hearings. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it until the hearings with the Congressman Tim Burchett and Congresswoman Anna Luna, and I think Matt Gaetz was on it. And I watched all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was super interesting. And something David Grush, I guess everybody that's familiar with your show, they're probably familiar with David Grush. For anybody that's new, he was the head of the UAP task force, which is the predecessor.
Elizondo, actually, Luis Elizondo.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So he wasn't the head of it. He was on the UAP task force, which was the predecessor to the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is Arrow now. And of course, if anybody knows about this stuff, it would be him, because he was that was his mission, was finding out about it, and knowing what was going on and being read in on programs that we would have, so he would know if he was chasing our tech or something else when he's looking into this stuff. One of the things he said, well, of course, and he did say that the U.S. has crash retrieval programs for UAP, reverse engineering programs that have been contracted out to private companies. There's a big collection of private companies out in Palmdale, which is not that far from Area 51. You've got Boeing there, I think.
Lockheed
Martin's there. NASA's there.
I think JPL.
There's no space. There's maybe.
Yeah.
A bunch of those guys.
Yeah.
One of the things Grush said and he was asked by, and I don't remember which member of the committee asked him, but one of them, it may have been Anna Luna that asked him, uh, how do we not see these things coming from a million miles away, approaching our atmosphere before they arrive? And he said that he got into string theory, which I'm not going to get into that, but he basically said it's they're probably interdimensional. So as a Christian, I'm very familiar with interdimensional beings, and there's a lot of text in the Bible about interdimensional beings interacting with humans.
Yeah.
In Genesis, the account of the flood, um, there's a whole lot of information about fallen angels intermarrying with humans. So
Genesis 6.
So there was something going on there with humans and non-humans, and in Daniel, I think Daniel 2, Daniel 2, it says, Daniel 2:42, it says, and as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And so this is talking about the final world kingdom, which is something I spend an awful lot of time thinking about and writing about in my books. So it kind of echoes back to that Genesis 6 story to me.
Yeah.
Right there. So and one of Jesus's famous sayings about the end times is, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. So is he just talking about, the world's rampant with sin and we're godless and violent, and obviously, we've hit all those check boxes, but could it also have to do with there being other interactions with the spirit world? And at Luke 21, Jesus said, there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear, and looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for that powers of heaven shall be shaken. So signs, curious signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, stuff in the heavens going on. And then that verse from Daniel makes me think that, that's probably what he was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the long answer to say, I think they're demons, and I think that they're spiritual, and probably also have a physical manifestation of some kind.
Right.
And could possibly be on Earth interacting with humans already. And I think that this is going to be part of the big end time deception, and I think we're being set up for it. And I think that we've been being set up for it all the way back to the 40s, ET, and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And in the Bible, the two angels appeared a lot, and they were physical form. They weren't, just some whatever spiritual thing. So yeah, I think they were probably tracking very similarly on all of that. Very interesting to hear you lay it out as you did. And what do you think, in any way, shape, or form, is any of that related to all the recent drone stuff out there, or is that something totally different? Just kind of curious, since it's in the news today.
Well, they've been, today's news. It's the NDAA. They're trying to bring Arrow into into looking into these drones. I think probably, to the best of my knowledge, these drones are just they're probably China collecting information on us.
Probably. Yeah.
Um, I don't. There's nothing. There's not been anything said about these drones having, operating like like the Tic Tac or I don't know if you watched. Did you watch George Knapp's Investigation Alien on Netflix? Have you seen that yet?
No.
It's a new series, and it just came out. And he's got some new video of a jellyfish kind of drone over a base in Iraq. Um,
I've seen pictures of that.
yeah. So that's the first time I've ever seen that one. But it's not, to my knowledge, they're not operating outside of the known laws of physics.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think that they're probably just adversaries collecting intelligence on us.
Yeah. All right.
And I wouldn't want to get, and I think that's probably a bad move to get Arrow in there, because they're just going to say, "Oh no, it's a glowing tennis ball."
Right. Right.
They're not. It's not Chinese drones. It's a glowing tennis ball somebody threw up too
Swamp
high.
gas.
And
Yep.
yeah,
The swamp gas in the DC areas. Something else.
yeah, because they're just Arrow is. It's 100% a cover up
Sure.
operation. That's their entire.
Sure.
That's their entire job.
Yep. Yep. Well, listen, you're a author of many, many books. How many books exactly have you written? I mean, because I start looking around on Amazon and I can't get the complete number, but there's a lot of them, Mark.
40.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 40, 41, something like that.
I have here in my hands. So I contacted you, I think, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And I had just started reading your books, and I was like, okay, I got to get a hold of this guy. And in that time, I've been able to read the days of I started with the book of Lot, I think it was
Okay.
so I read
Days a lot.
yeah, the Days of Lot. I read the first one, and then
All
a
right.
buddy of mine who was reading them said, "Man, why don't you start with the Noah books of Noah, Days of Noah, and Days
Uh-huh.
of Elijah?" So here I have 6 books, and I'm on the last one of Days of Elijah right
Okay.
now. I've been able to kind of get over the past 2 or 3 weeks, so I could kind of get to, just kind of get where you're at. And before we get into maybe exactly what your books are about and everything, because that is why we're talking, but I'm very interested, Mark, in knowing kind of a little bit more about you, your background, and where are you from? Like, when did you become a Christian? And because your books are very interesting in that they have a certain amount of ancillary information.
Uh-huh.
You've definitely got a plot line, and you get from A to Z. But
Uh-huh.
along that road, there are, I mean, if unless you're just a complete fool, you're dropping knowledge in there, not only about the Bible and God and salvation and all that stuff, but also about prepping and weapons and all kinds of different little things. So I find it interesting, and plus with your characters, you've got characters from the financial community. You've got characters who are, from CIA, NSA. You've got all these different human beings that you write from a considerable place of authority on. And I'm just kind of curious about your background, what got you into writing, all that. So if you can, maybe just kind of tell me a little bit more about you so we can kind of get a foundation of how this all started.
Okay. So I grew up. I grew up in Kentucky. Um, Middle class Christian home, but Christian as in we went to church. We went to church on Sundays, and uh, and then and then the rest of the time I spent in public schools and kind of fell in with the wrong crowd, got into drugs and alcohol, went down that path for years till it led to addiction and alcoholism. And then I had a DUI. I was court ordered to a Christian rehab program, and so it was there that I got discipled, and I really learned what it meant to follow Christ. And it was there when reading the Bible became part of my life, because before it had just been, going to church, and God was great, and He was going to forgive me, and I was going to and I used that as a license for lasciviousness, because I didn't know that you shouldn't, and I didn't really think about the implications that, I'm just piling all this extra sin on Jesus when he's dying on that cross. Every one of those extra sins is just making that a worse experience for him. I didn't think about it like that. But that's how I look at sin now. Um, um,
That's powerful, by the way. That's very powerful. Wow. I've never heard it like that.
yeah,
That's great.
thanks. And and then I got clean, got sober. I was working in a church, actually, a mega church in South Florida, and that's where I met my wife. And we were in church one day, and I just finished my degree for accounting, and I'd gotten an accounting job, and I thought I would like it, because I thought I would enjoy just, I'm kind of an introvert, and I thought I would kind of enjoy just being in a cubicle by myself with numbers, because I like numbers. I like economics, but economics and accounting are very different. Economics is kind of the big picture view, macro, and accounting is teeny tiny little details, and so I did not like it, and I just spent so much of my life working on getting that degree and getting that job, and I hated it, and so I was actually fasting and praying, and asking God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my life from here? And the pastor stopped in the middle of the sermon, and he said, somebody out there's got a book rolling around in their head, and you need to go home and start writing it tonight. And I had the Economic Collapse Chronicles rolling around in my head, and I thought, okay, maybe someday when I retire, I'm going to write this book. I had no intention of sitting down at a computer and writing out the book. And so I thought, and it was a mega church, like I said. So there's like 3,800 people in the service that time. Plus, it was being streamed to several satellites, and plus everybody that was watching at home. And I thought, that's probably for somebody else, that word, but just in case it's for me, I'm going to go home and write this book. And that was 40 books ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the short answer.
All right. All right. Your books are, can I ask what denomination your church was? It doesn't really matter. I was just kind of curious.
It was Calvary Chapel.
Okay. Kind of just a, like,
Calvary's kind of a non-denominational.
right.
They're, I don't know. You call them Baptist-costal, probably.
Right. I got you. Got you.
They believe in the gifts of the Spirit, but also believe in the very, very Bible focused,
Gotcha.
Bible oriented.
Your characters, like I said, they're based on all these different, just a pretty broad range of characters. Is any of that taken from your own personal experience in life, or is it people or is that just something you're creating in your mind?
It's a mix. Some of them are actual people, like, I didn't even change the names. But those are mostly like very, very peripheral characters.
Right.
Most of the main characters are, some amalgamation of somebody I may have known, and something.
I gotcha. All right. And you write, and I know this not be from my own personal experience, but I did see it a little bit in the days of Lot, and then going into the days of Noah. So you write kind of a lot of this end times, rapture, kind of stuff, but it's like different scenarios. It could happen this way, it could happen this way, and it's all, and one of the things you said in after one of your books, there's a little author's note, and you said, don't take your eschatology from fiction, which right. I thought was well put, because a lot of people will read a book like some of these books and I'll be like, well, listen, man, I'm definitely pre-trib, and I don't know if this is exactly according to, and it's just like, well, it is a fiction book. Um, so I guess basically is like, are these just different ideas that you come up with on different possible ways it could go down? Uh, or, are you writing one idea and another idea comes into your head? How's that whole process actually happen, if I can ask?
Yeah, yeah, it's just kind of whatever I'm thinking at the time.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm not dyed in the wool on any. I'm what you would call pan trib. It's all going to pan out when Jesus comes back.
Right.
But so I'm praying for pre-trib and prepping for post, right? And but actually, probably think it's some kind of a. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably call myself. I don't think pre-wrath is really the right word for it. Jacob Prasch, he has one called Intra Seal. I think that was probably a good fit.
Which is
It's
kind of,
it's kind of it's a kind of pre-wrath.
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. And you've used, I'm just waiting. I'm just going to throw this out there. All right. Now I have your ear for just a very short, brief period of time here. I'm just going to say at some point, if you ever feel like writing one of these books and somehow or another, um, you completely use this, aliens attacking and some dude who's part alien, half hybrid alien becomes the Antichrist, says, hey, we can trust these guys, but we got to band together because there's another group of aliens coming. And he's talking about Jesus Christ. When you write that book, just let me know, because I've been playing with that idea for years. I
It's
think
on pre-order.
okay. It is.
Yeah, it's coming out in March. It's Kingdom Come.
Woohoo. All right. I'm writing
Yeah,
that down.
the cover art is a pyramid shaped UAP
Oh,
hovering over the Capitol building,
well, well, well. All right, Mark.
and that's
That's awesome.
behold a white horse,
Okay.
and
All
it's
right.
the series title is Kingdom Come.
All right.
Yeah, so that'll be out in March. So you don't have long.
I'll get, yeah, I'll be ordering that as soon as we're off
But
as soon as
thanks
we're
for the
off.
idea.
Well, it wasn't my idea, really. I mean, it's just I feel the more and more I get into the whole alien thing, I just feel like we are being so, just,
We're being so set up for it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
you know who Sean Kirkpatrick was, right?
yeah,
So he was the first director of Arrow, and he worked for CIA, DIA, all of that stuff. He wrote a physics paper with physicist Avi Loeb, and Avi Loeb said, "My hope is that Messiah." And so Avi Loeb is he's a Jew. He's not Jewish, not a practicing Jew, but Jewish by heritage or by race. And he said, "My hope is that Messiah will not necessarily come from this earth, but would come from another star and would give us a better perspective about how to handle ourselves as the human species to do better." And he said that on the Sean Ryan show back in October of
oh,
this
wow,
year.
wow, very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write? Now, Kingdom Come, is it just one? Is that the first book of a series, or is it going to be a series, or just one book? What is that?
Yeah, so that's the first book. That's the series title is Kingdom Come, and
Okay,
then book one is going to be called is called Behold a White Horse.
okay. How long did that take you to write that? If I can ask, how long it takes you to write a book?
4 months.
Okay, yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was the congressional hearings that you just kind of kicked that off, and it got me thinking about that and looking into all of this.
yeah,
So
very cool, very cool. Um, And I gotta just ask, like, from a prepping standpoint, and just recently we talked to. I've got family who lives in Western North Carolina. I lived in Tennessee for a while myself. I've got friends and family and whatnot in East Tennessee, and obviously with Hurricane Helene just hitting that area. And I know from my family, Roan Mountain and whatnot, that area. Man, it's just devastating, the stuff that went on, and there's some really on cool things that went on too in terms of FEMA and other stuff like that. But you get into prepping, the idea of prepping, and I understand that you're involved in that. And you mentioned it before, yeah. Just be prepared. So I kind of wanted to get just kind of like a base level thought process of what got you into that, what mindset and thinking got you into that, and why you would probably suggest it for other people.
I think probably 2008 is probably what really woke me up to a lot of the problems that we're facing from a financial perspective. And I think there's a lot of threats out there, everything from UAP to EMP or CME. There's a lot of acronyms,
Right.
aren't there? But financial, that's the one that's really baked into the cake. And so just coming out of 2008 in realizing that I had no idea how close we came to economic catastrophe.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into it and digging into it, and we haven't fixed anything.
No.
And the problem has been exacerbated greatly. I've got great hope for Doge that that they're going to actually make some cuts, but we don't have a great track record for that. And I voted for Trump. I voted for him. I've voted for the man 3 times in general elections. I've never supported him in a primary. He's not my favorite, but I certainly think we dodged a bullet not getting Kamala, which in Spanish is Kamala. And for those of you that don't know Spanish, that's how awful. That's what Kamala means in Spanish. But she wanted to do price controls. She wanted to tax unrealized capital gains. So they're talking about doing. They've actually, I think they're going to do that in Australia, tax unrealized capital gains. And you can watch documentaries about plenty of communist countries to see how price controls turn out. One that comes to mind right away is Cuba and the Cameraman. That one's on Netflix. And you can see how well price controls work and what the grocery store looks like after those are implemented.
Yeah.
Venezuela, they've done that. I think the average Venezuelan, I forget which year it was, but one of the years of the early years of the Venezuelan crisis, in 1 year, the average Venezuelan had lost 18 pounds. So that's not the fat guy that probably needed to. That's the fat guy that probably needed to, and the 9-year-old kid that didn't need to, and the elderly woman that was maybe already kind of just barely scraping by, and the pregnant lady that needed to gain 18 pounds.
Right.
So that's catastrophic.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely.
But in Trump's first administration, he had at the time he broke the record for the average annual deficit. His average annual deficit was 1.75 trillion. He took us from 20 trillion when Obama left to 27 trillion. Now, not that Biden didn't outdo him, Biden's average annual deficit was 2.25 trillion. So bringing us from 27 trillion to 36. So, but each president in recent history has outdone the guy before him. Obama's average was 1.25 trillion. George W's was half a trillion. He took us from 6 trillion to 10 in his 8 years. 8 years of the Clinton White House brought us from 4 to 6. So they had a quarter trillion each year. So each guy outdoes the guy that was before him. So
Yeah, it's
Trump doesn't
crazy.
he Trump doesn't have he doesn't have a reputation for being tight with the purse strings.
Right, right. Well, let's hope that in some way, shape, or form it gets fixed, because I mean, you're just the road is obvious. The destination is obvious, given the road we're on. And
Right.
there has to be a breaking point, a tipping point at some point, that is collapse, that can be financial and in a lot of different ways. And so I guess maybe it's not a crazy idea to be prepared.
No, not at all. Not at all. Um, Frontline, which is my favorite far left propaganda outlet, they just put out a film on a year of war in Gaza and Israel, and for a far left uh, news organization, it was fairly balanced. It wasn't. It was. I didn't see it as being like grossly overweight
Mm-hmm.
towards the Palestinians, which I kind of thought it would be, but it was pretty fair in their reporting. They were very very upfront about the atrocities on October 7th, but they were also very very upfront about what's being done in Gaza as well. And regardless, and everybody's got a horse in that race. They like one guy over the other. Um, and I think that I don't think we always have to subscribe to the Hollywood viewpoint. You don't always have to have a good guy and a bad guy. Sometimes you got two bad guys.
Yeah.
um, with that said, I do believe, according to the Bible, I think Israel is belongs to the Jews. I think God gave it to them, and I think they have the right to be there, and I think they have the right to defend themselves. And I wouldn't want somebody living in my backyard that thought I didn't have the right to exist. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so
yeah.
they and war is always brutal.
Yeah.
So there's no pretty war, and there's no war where innocent people don't get hurt and children don't suffer. But anyway, long story short, they've got some really good footage of kids in there scraping flour up out of the mud and just putting it in their mouth with the flour and the mud mixed together because they're starving to death.
Wow.
And and that's just kind of what happens in war, you know.
Yeah.
And I do hope that Trump's going to be able to walk us back from the precipice of nuclear war, but there's just lots of global conflicts going on right now, and we've been fortunate to not have any kind of an invasion. If you're not of Native American heritage,
Right. Right. Right.
to have not had any kind of a invasion on our homeland in the history of our country. But that's not yet. That doesn't mean it can't ever happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't take you too awful far to do some research on that and find out all kinds of crazy stuff.
Uh-huh.
From China and Canada and Mexico and all these different things that are potential possibilities. And you got the stuff that's going on in Syria right now. It's just, it's a mad world.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast with Kash Patel not long ago, and he was talking about just the untold thousands upon thousands of potential Islamic terrorists that have flooded in through the southern border, and the possibility of something that would make 9/11 look like Sunday school.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
I mean, it doesn't, you don't even have to use your imagination anymore to realize that um, when, when, when the opportunities were so blatantly available,
sure.
and to believe that they weren't taken advantage of, it's kind of naive, you know.
Right.
Now, what the consequences of that, we'll find out. But back to it again, I do believe that there's zero, really zero downside in not being prepared
Right.
in some way, shape or form. You know, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and your animals or whatever. Um,
Sure.
and yeah, so and I really appreciate you have some really interesting prepper tips along the way, some very interesting weapons information along the way, and just self-defense and smart, um, you know, at the end of the day, kind of common sense stuff. But we don't live in a common sense world anymore. So it's
No.
interesting. Well, that's about it, man. Why don't you tell the amazing people out there who are watching this how they can get your books? And man, I'm telling you right now, I highly recommend them. I don't know where you would tell people to start. I started with the days of Noah, and then which goes into the days of Elijah, and enjoying it. And I'm sure that I'm going to be getting more of those for some folks for Christmas and whatnot. But please tell people where they can, get a hold of you, maybe get to know a little bit more about you, and obviously get your books. And yeah.
So I do have a website. It's prepperrecon.com, and all the books are listed there, and I put out information about new books. Also, you can just put Mark Goodwin in the search bar on Amazon, and all the books are available in paperback, Kindle, and they're also all available on Audible for folks that like podcasts and like to multitask or spend a lot of time commuting for work or whatever. Um, and I don't use profanity in any of my books, and I don't have embarrassing sex scenes, so they're more or less kid friendly. There's some violence in there, so maybe we'd call it PG-13 kind of
Right.
perhaps. But
Right.
And there, so Amazon's a great place to find those, and Audible if you like the audiobook forms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, I tell you what, Mark, I appreciate you so much. And like I said, folks, if you're looking for just a good read, kind of fun, especially if you're in the end times, fiction that is connected to and related to the Bible. There's a lot of scripture in it. I love how some of the chapters start with a verse or a portion of text from the Bible. But yeah, if you're in the market, and listen, folks, if you're out there and you're searching, maybe you're atheist, agnostic, but you just want a good read about dystopian end time situations and governments and all that stuff, then it's for you too. Can't go wrong with it. So, Mark, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you ever want to come back on and get anything out there, let's talk. I'd be happy to have you because we really appreciate you. You're awesome.
All right, Ryan. Well, thanks so much for having me. And then one thing I did forget to mention is that on my website on prepperrecon.com, very top of the page, you can click the banner. It says get your free PDF copy of the 7-step survival plan. That'll walk you through for people that think, okay, maybe I should start getting prepared, and that'll walk you through making sure you've got all your bases covered, and it's free. And I just like giving that out to folks to so you don't have to get overwhelmed wondering where to start and what to do next.
Yep, and I downloaded that. Very interesting. So yes, please do that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, author, awesome fellow. Thank you so much. The one and only Mark Goodwin. If you'd like to learn more about Mark Goodwin, please stop by his website, prepperrecon.com, where you can also get his 7-step survival plan for free. Check out all of his books. You can also find them on Amazon. Check them out. They make great Christmas gifts. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, if you'd like to really support this channel, please stop by theryanfiles.com. Click that Become an Agent button, and you will be forwarded to www.patreon.com/The Ryan Files, where you can become an agent of The Ryan Files. If you stop by Patreon too, check it out. You can get membership gifts for other people. Check it out. All your support helps. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Be kind, be awesome, and as always, stay curious out there, my friends. And I will see you right here next week for a special Christmas Eve edition of The Ryan Files.
Are you not curious?
Preparing to transfer the Ryan Files. Now.
I present to you, with great intrigue and wonder, the Ryan Files.